The Pale Girl of Gravenmoor. Gravenmoor was not a place people came to live. It was a place people ended up, by mistake, by desperation, or by punishment. The city had long been forgotten by progress, with buildings that leaned like drunkards and streets that hissed with leaking steam even in the dead of summer. It always smelled faintly of rust, rain, and something sweetly rotten. It was in this city that Elira Crow was born. She was a strange child from the beginning. Sickly, quiet, with skin so pale she looked half-formed. Her mother, Mora Crow, worked long nights as a seamstress, her fingers always stained with ink and blood from needles that slipped in her exhaustion. Her father had vanished when Elira was still learning how to speak, leaving behind only an empty bottle and a mold-eaten coat. The children at school mocked Elira endlessly. She wore clothes patched with odd fabrics, one sleeve velvet, another denim, because Mora used scraps to make ends meet. They called her names: threadbare, patchwork freak, moth girl. But she never cried. She would just stare with those stagnant, watery eyes of hers, as if memorizing their faces. By the time she turned 17, Elira was entirely alone. Her mother's health was failing. Bills piled up. The world ignored her existence. Teachers overlooked her. Shopkeepers shortchanged her. The city swallowed her whole. And then, on the night of the first snowfall, Elira vanished. Her mother called the police. They asked if she'd run away. When Mora said no, they shrugged. Girls like that disappear all the time. Days passed. Then weeks. Posters curled on lamp posts. Her name faded from headlines. No one searched. No one cared. Until the dog found her. A straggly, starving mutt digging in the muck near Ashbridge Station pulled up something soft and pale. A hand. Elira's body was in pieces, buried in a shallow drain clogged with dead leaves and plastic bags. Her limbs were twisted unnaturally, her fingernails broken. Her face had been mutilated, 2 jagged slits carved from the corners of her lips to her cheeks. A mockery of a smile, sewn shut with dirty black thread. There was no funeral. The morgue kept her in cold storage. No one claimed the remains. But that night the snow turned black as it fell. And the crows came. Perfect. Ashbridge Station was a dead vein in Gravenmoor's rotting body. Once it had been the city's main subway hub, alive with flickering signs and the screech of steel wheels. But now rats owned the tunnels, and the station was a mausoleum of rusted benches and broken lights. The graffiti on the walls peeled like old skin. It was there, in the sewage drain behind the platform, that Elira's body was found. The police sealed the area for one day. Then they opened it again. They had no suspects, no evidence, no interest. The city swallowed the horror the way it always had, with a blank stare and a shrug. But the shadows in Ashbridge Station changed. Commuters began reporting strange things. Whispers in the tunnels when no one else was around. A smell of rotting flowers. Electrical systems glitched when people passed a specific stairwell, the one nearest the drain where Elira's remains had been recovered. Then came the crows. They gathered on the tracks and rafters watching. Hundreds of them. Silent. Unmoving. A station attendant tried to chase them away with a broom. That night, he went home and gouged out both his eyes with knitting needles. He left a note written in blood: "She's awake." Within a week, 3 more people died. A boy who had bullied Elira in school was found hanged in the bathroom of a cinema. His face was stretched into a grotesque grin. His lips were stitched closed. A woman who once slapped Elira for loitering outside her shop was crushed in an elevator, the emergency brakes failing just long enough to flatten her spine like paper. And then there was Curtis Melvin. Curtis had been a transit officer at Ashbridge. He used to laugh about the ghost girl stories, until he saw her. He was doing a sweep of the station at 3:11 a.m. The cameras caught it all. A flicker. A pale figure stepping from the wall as if the bricks were smoke. Elira. Hair soaked, eyes wide, mouth gaping open, but no scream came. Just a rattling sound, like teeth chattering in an empty skull. Curtis turned and ran. He was found the next morning in the break room closet, curled in. Died grinning. The city called it a mental health crisis. The public moved on. But Ashbridge Station changed. It grew colder. Lights flickered longer. Shadows lingered. A sign was painted over the stairwell wall in red: "She remembers." Mora Crow stopped speaking after they found Elira. She sat in the corner of her decrepit apartment, surrounded by unfinished dresses and bolts of moth-eaten fabric. The light never worked in the living room anymore. Even when she replaced the bulbs, darkness remained, fetal position, whispering, "She sewed my thoughts shut. I can't think anymore. I can't stop smiling." Thick, heavy, unnatural. Neighbors said they heard her talking to someone at night. whispering lullabies, pausing to listen, then weeping, always weeping. She refused to leave the apartment, refused visitors. The food delivery boys left bags at her door, which she sometimes never touched. And the crows came to perch on her windowsill, one by one, dozens, watching, always watching. One night, a neighbor across the hall, an old man named Henrik, claimed to see something through her cracked door. A shape floating. A girl in a tattered, wet dress. Pale skin, gaping mouth stitched at the corners. Her feet hovered inches above the ground. Henrik called the police. When they entered Mora's apartment, they found her in her sewing chair. Silent. So. She was holding a small, headless doll made from human hair and thread. Her eyes had been sewn shut. A needle still dangled from the thread that pierced her lids. On the wall behind her, scratched in long, ragged strokes, "She never smiled for me." Mr. Langdon was a science teacher at Gravenmoor High. Strict, cruel, and proud of his record for weeding out the weak. He often mocked Elira in class. Made her read aloud until she trembled. Laughed when she stuttered. "Lifeless thing," he'd called her once. Like talking to a damp rag. He lived alone in a tidy brick townhouse, surrounded by empty bird cages. He collected exotic birds once, but they all died mysteriously the week Elira disappeared. One night the neighbors heard screaming. When police arrived, they found Langdon nailed to the kitchen wall, arms outstretched like wings, chest sliced open. Inside the cavity where his heart should have been, was a tiny dress made of feathers and flesh, stitched with black thread. Blood had been used to write a message on the tiled floor, "Teach me to fly." By now, people across Gravenmoor were dreaming of her. They saw her walking barefoot through underground tunnels, dragging a needle the size of a sword. Her mouth gaped open, sewn at the corners, black thread dangling like a spider's legs. She stood in hallways, in elevators, behind mirrors. They said she stared through their eyes and whispered, "You forgot me." Some woke with scratches across their lips. Others with bruises in the shape of tiny childlike hands. One woman gouged out her own ears after dreaming Elira was singing to her. Singing without a voice, the sound made of insects buzzing under her skin. Hospitals overflowed. The city said it was a chemical leak. Mass hallucinations. Hysteria. But those who saw her knew better. The pale girl of Gravenmoor was real. And she was no longer just haunting the place of her death. She was spreading. 2 boys went missing in the service tunnels beneath Gravenmoor. Lucas and Milo, both 12, both daring each other to go deeper into the forgotten paths beneath Ashbridge Station. They took a flashlight and a bag of snacks. Their last message was a video. The footage begins shaky, nervous laughter, mocking each other. Then silence. The flashlight flickers. They hear a wet dragging sound. "Who's there?" Lucas calls. The camera jerks as something pale passes in the beam. A girl. Soaked. Smiling wide. She moves without sound. Then the screen goes black and only a voice remains, whispering, "Want to see my stitches?" Days later the boys were found. "If you're still here, still breathing, then she hasn't chosen you, yet. But she always does eventually. Like, comment, and subscribe, before the pale girl of Gravenmoor finds your door next.